Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for coming along. I'll just jump over to my administrator dashboard. So I'm going to be going through several functions in relation to task. But of course, today I just wanted to start off by having a look at what you need to begin with as an administrator of your HROnboard environment to create, manage and troubleshoot your tasks. So drilling into our user management here, just clicking on the roles, we're going to have a look at our administrator roles. Administrator typically has permissions available for task management. So drilling in here, we can see the specific tasks in question. Under the prepare offer/exit file, we can see the assign and delete tasks option is ticked. So this is something that we can actually typically see applied to HR roles as well as users who can modify the tasks for particular offers or exits. This allows them to assign tasks in the prepare and review offer stages and delete incomplete tasks. Administrative specific task permissions, we have task management, the ability to manage tasks and task lists. Now, so long as this one is ticked, our administrator can create and modify and update tasks, which we'll go through in just a moment. And so long as this one is selected, our task can then be modified for particular offers. That's important to kind of differentiate. System administration permissions will allow config changes, and prepare offer exit file a very kind of snapshot on the offer, very particular. Okay, how do we get to tasks? So from the admin dashboard, when you log in, you'll actually be on the dashboard here. So navigating to the admin dashboard, you'll be able to select between your workflows. Let's say we want to create an onboard workflow task. So clicking on our onboard workflow, on the left-hand side, you can see a list of options, and almost halfway down, you can see the tasks option just here. Drilling in takes us to a list of the tasks that are currently configured in the environment. Now, if you get a little confused and you have some questions regarding when you're in there and creating your task, you have some questions, we do have a wonderful help center that you can access by clicking on the need help option just on the right-hand side of the screen. Clicking on that one will open up the administration guide first and foremost, and scrolling through here, you can actually see task management with a article just underneath we can select with some great information there. And this is a growing and evolving tool. So if you have feedback on anything in our help center, you found that you wanted a bit more information, you found there was a bit too much information, let us know. We're constantly updating these articles to be more relevant for you as an administrator user and as back office users. Okay. So in order to create a task, you'll need to then navigate to the add option in the top right-hand corner. Clicking on that add option will take you through to the add back office task screen, where we then have a series of fields to fill out. Some of them mandatory, denoted by the asterisks on each field name, and some not mandatory. Recommended, but not mandatory. So sometimes you will see some tasks in there with a very descriptive title, maybe with a few too many words in there that could have probably used a description, but that's all about the learning experience. So required fields, actually I'm just going to go from the top to the bottom and just go through each field as they come through. Now remember, you can send through questions and Michelle will butt in and let me know, and we'll see what we can address as we're moving along. Task name. So of course we need to name our task. I'm just going to name this our uniform requirements task, or actually let's call it uniform provisioning. So this is going to be the task that I create for a user to log in and tick off once I've done my uniform provisioning. And I can add a bit of a description here. So please make sure you have provisioned a shirt and slacks for the new employee. Whatever kind of description you need to provide to the to the person completing the task, you can include in here, and you can edit it just like a notification. For those that were here last month and those that have been in the app playing with their notifications, you can edit it using our WYSIWYG or our WYSIWYG editor. Similar to Word, different functions available. You can bold, italicize, all that kind of cool stuff that Word does. Adding in bulleted list, anything that needs to be included. For further information, we do have the options to include a form. Now I'm going to kind of breeze past this. We might be able to get back to that a bit later. A little bit more of an advanced option for the tasks. So the task creation trigger, when will the task be created? This is where you make your selection of if you want the task to be created for our task completer at a different stage of the process. Here we have a number of pre-configured triggers. Standard triggers, they work the same way that our notifications do. So if I was to select transition to accepting offer, let's go with transition to completing post-acceptance. Typically, we have 3 levels of acceptance for employees. They will do pre-acceptance, then they'll accept their offer, and then they will complete their post-acceptance. So this transition to completing post-acceptance actually refers to once they have physically accepted their offer or electronically accepted their offer. They've put their code in and that transition occurs. That means I want this uniform task to trigger when we can guarantee that the employee has accepted their offer. If you want to, if you're pretty certain, similar to our scenario last webinar, if you're fairly certain that any offer that is sent out, well, 99% of the offers that are sent out are going to be accepted, and you need to get uniform provisioned very quickly, you can actually trigger it a lot earlier, trigger it at offer sent. So when that offer is sent to the employee, you can trigger it then. Or if you know that only once payroll has processed the offer, you can then provision uniforms. We have triggers for that one as well. So I'm going to leave this one on transition to completing post-acceptance. So this will actually trigger once the task is, once the offer, has been accepted by the employee.
Daniel, we've got a really good question from Kristen, and she's asking, can tasks be triggered by the completion of a previous task?
We were just talking about this actually, wondering if it was going to come up.
Yep.
So that's a really good question. What we can do, now this is something that's on your friendly CS, your customer success consultant. You can let them know that you have created a task, and based on that task, you want to trigger another task. What we can then do is then create a new trigger for you. Now, don't tell anyone I told you, but I think in the roadmap, we are going to be working on allowing you guys to create triggers. So the long and short of it is, yes, Kristen, we can trigger a task based on the completion of another task. Similar to notifications. Once we've created that trigger, we can use that at any point triggers are used. I hope that answers your question. If you need further detail, just send through another question. That'd be great. Thank you. Task trigger. Okay, so we've just gone over that one. Jumping down to what offers get this task. So we have an option here, add to these task lists. Now this refers to when you are creating an offer, what list the task will be shown under. Now I've got a screen open just on our last tab here, where we can see those tasks we saw earlier, the 4 pre-created tasks. We can see that we have the one set to the default list. Dropping this down, we can see the 3 different lists. Now, what has happened is when creating these tasks, our administrator user has actually gone, okay, I want to include this one as a blue-collar task or a corporate operations task, or I want to create an entirely new task list. So this one's going to be for our factory workers. And simply selecting create option factory workers allows us to create a new list to be selected on that create screen. Now just going back to our create screen so I can kind of reiterate that, navigating over here. in this drop-down list, so we've created our offer, gone through the details and documents screen that I'm sure you're all familiar with as HR users or back office users. Within this drop-down, once I've created my new task under that new list, we would see factory as an option here. And simply clicking on this list allows me to include the tasks allocated to that list on this offer. And if I go, hang on, I don't want the default task, I can simply remove it. And then accidentally, oh no, I've deleted that by accident. I can go back and I can just add that straight back in. So the tasks are very fluid. When you get to this screen and you've got them created, you can pick and choose which task to add. For example, if we have 2 tasks for corporate operations, but I only wanted to include one of them, I can simply delete the one that I didn't want to include. Okay, that is our task list. We're going to leave this one on default. The task creation condition. Now this is a little more in-depth, similar, very, very similar to our notifications send condition. This is the kind of information you want to include. So say you have a task that is applicable only for full-time employees. You could put in some logic in this creation condition in the same way that you put logic into the notification send conditions. And that task would only ever show for offers which met those conditions. Now, I won't go into that in too much detail. Again, if you would like further information, please speak up and or even contact your customer success consultant to discuss further.
Yeah, creating conditions and that type of logic we will cover in another masterclass because it's sort of a session on its own.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, getting to the bottom of the list here. Who is assigned to this task? So we similarly, again, to notifications, you're probably seeing a lot of similarities between tasks and notifications. We can assign this task to different types of assignees. We currently have it selected as a HROnboard user, which means I can hit this drop down here, the user drop down, and I can select any user which is currently in the workflow. Now, owner and manager refers to offer specific details. Owner will always refer to the person who created the offer. And manager refers to the details captured in the hiring manager field. But say it's a uniform provisioning task, so I'm pretty sure Jeff is our provisioner for this environment. But if I think, Jeff's not always available to do these tasks, I can actually create a role and then assign this task to everyone in a role with access. So if I was to create the role, I believe Jeff's department is actually, role is actually IT department, and I selected IT department, this would mean that anyone who has been assigned that role and has visibility of the offer, meaning they can see offers under that location or company, they will be able to go in and complete that task. So we have two options here, a little bit less than what we see in the notifications, but fitting the relevant use cases, we found that these two are more suitable for the task configuration.
Yeah, so because assigning it to a specific user if they're on leave,
exactly.
I mean, we can easily reassign it and we will go through it, how to do that. It's just weighing up what you think is going to suit your processes better, I think. Yeah, whether it's suited, assigned to a role or a user.
Yeah, that's it. Now, I think there was a question on the next part, the due date, or something kind of relevant to the due date. In our previous masterclass, we were asking about sending out notifications based relative to the start date.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we can actually trigger tasks due to be completed relative to the start date. So say, for example, these uniform details are to be completed 5 days before the start date, and they have to be completed. If we tick this due date option here and mark that up to 5 days before the start date, we can actually set it to after as well. That's another option. There we go. That will trigger the user who this is assigned to. It'll be visible on their screen in order of due date. And I believe if reminders are switched on in your environment, which they typically are, for task reminders, they will be triggered 2 days before the due date of the task. Now, for example, if we have start date ticked, that means if Jeff hasn't completed his uniform provisioning on the start date, or before the start date, he will get another email saying, hey, Jeff, don't forget to do Daniel's uniform provisioning. And it provides a link to Jeff to log in and complete that task. Another more in-depth detail, the blocking task. So this kind of the description says it, which workflow stage should be blocked by this task. Leave blank if it's a non-blocking task. This means if you want this task to stop the offer from progressing past a certain point. So say, for example, you don't want payroll to process an offer until uniform provisioning has been done. We can select in this stage drop-down list, different stages. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the drop-down, but different stages throughout the process, similar to the ones you would see in the summary file of offers. They will show the different stages. You can actually block the transition to that stage based on the completion of the task. That means until Jeff logs on, completes uniform provisioning, the offer isn't moving past whichever stage you specify, or getting to whichever stage you specify. So that's the configuration of the tasks. It looks like we have another question though.
We've got a few questions which I think will be good to go through. So Catherine's asking if the offer's accepted and then subsequently edited and taking it back to the prepare offer stage, is there any way to stop a second trigger if the offer has to go through the process again?
Now, this question is probably relevant for both notifications and tasks. Mm-hmm. First, I'll answer it about tasks, of course. So the way a task will work when an offer is pulled back to the edit stage using the edit function, if a task has not been completed, it will not be re-triggered. However, if that task has already been completed for that offer, it will not be re-triggered. Let me say that again. I think I've tripped over my words a little. If a task has been created but not completed, it will be re-triggered again. However, if a task has been created and then Jeff logged in, he finished his task, then that offer is pulled back to edit, then that task will not be triggered again. Now, I apologise, I got a little mixed up there. And
yeah, but, so basically if it's already completed.
If it's already completed.
Yeah, even if the offer needs to go back to edit stage and accept it again.
It won't be triggered again.
It won't be triggered again. But if it's still outstanding, which makes sense, right? Still needs to be done, it will be triggered.
Now, just quickly, for notifications, it's a slightly different story. They are not versioned, which means they will not be impacted by an offer coming back and forth. So to kind of understand that a bit better or explain that a bit better, I guess if you were to pull a notification back to the edit stage from, say, offer accepted, that means when that offer transitions past offer accepted again, the notifications will in fact resend.
Yeah.
And any edits made to those notifications are applied immediately.
And just to stay on notifications, do users get a notification to tell them that they need to complete a task?
This is typically something you would configure in conjunction with the task.
Yes.
So navigating through your notifications, including the email of the notification in the way that you learned last month, triggering it to send to at the same time to the same assignee. Automatically notifying the assignee of the task is not part of the task configuration. It is a separate notification.
Yeah. So
sometimes when you've got a lot of transactions going through, a lot of offers or something, and there's tasks which need to occur, maybe bookkeeping tasks, say for payroll, these are some things that don't typically need to be notified of. They're in the app constantly. They don't want to get another 100 emails a month.
So you can, it's just an additional step.
It's an additional step.
Yep, yes. Cool. And with the due date for the task, how far into the future can that be sent?
How far into this? You know what? I haven't found a limit. I haven't tried myself. I would need to, could we take a note on that one and potentially get back to that?
Yeah, Kristen, I'll talk to you about that because your sort of use cases around probation reviews, and that will be managed in your welcomes journeys a bit better, I think. So I think short answer is we don't see a cap, but however, you wouldn't want tasks open for too long in an onboarding offer because it would just keep things open.
That's it. And one thing to make sure you're looking at an onboard is it's kind of the life cycle of an offer. You're creating a contract to send to an employee to be accepted by the employer and then processed by payroll. Probations, like Michelle said, typically something that are well handled in our welcomes product. And certainly something that you can get more information from us if you just reach out.
And then just one final question that I'll answer. Glenda, no, tasks aren't an additional cost. This is all part of the product, ready for you to use whenever you need to.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Okay, so that kind of covers the creation of a task. Once you have finished adding all the details you want to add, you simply hit that add button and that'll create the new task. I'm not going to add this one because I believe I already have a uniform provisioning task in this environment and that would just double up. But what I'll do now is we're going to go through how the tasks will present to different users, from the dashboard, from the offer file perspective, and even in our own special tasks menu. So navigating to our dashboard, here we can see all the actions that are currently available for Rick. Now, one thing to keep in mind, Rick has payroll access. So you can see a lot of payroll tasks or payroll actions to complete. But scrolling down, we can see some tasks for my offer created, or tasks for other offers you can see in this list as well. So for example, we have one here due a few months ago. Jane Doe hasn't had her separation certificate generated. This is a task and how it will show in the actions for you menu from the dashboard. So directly when you log in, anything relevant to you, sorted by due date, will be shown for you. Let's just drill into, say this is an onboard task for a Sharon Beaumont from a few months ago that Rick hasn't done yet. We can drill in and see what that looks like from this menu. That takes us straight to the task completion screen. And from here, we can go to Sharon's offer file or her forms. We can go back to our dashboard and just clicking on it one more time, we can actually mark that as complete, as you would expect. Now, if I go directly to an offer, so I'm just going to navigate to a test offer I completed earlier today for the demo. We can see our offer file here. These are the different stages referring to earlier. Across the top, we've got our summary, forms, documents, and our tasks. Now, these are tasks specific only to this offer. Clicking on the tasks, I can actually see what tasks have been allocated. You saw that we had the option to include further tasks. I've obviously only gone with the one. And as you can see, I do have a uniform requirements task already configured, and it's assigned to Jeff. Now, Michelle mentioned earlier, what if Jeff's on leave? What if Jeff isn't available to complete this task? We can very easily, from the offer file on the task menu, assign that to a new user or to everyone in Roll with Access. So I'm just going to quickly assign that to myself because I know Jeff's pretty slack. So that's been assigned to me. I can now drill in and I can see the task. I can see a bit of a description that's been added to this task. And then once I have confirmed that I've completed it, I mark that as complete. Going back to our offer file, we can see it has now been marked off as completed by, well, not me, Rick. If there were any further tasks which had not yet been allocated or made available to the assignee, they would show up in this not available yet table at the bottom. So say, for example, we have a task triggered on back office once it's been processed by payroll. But this offer is currently sitting at, as we can see, back office processing. So the trigger we're looking for that task is right here. If that task was configured, it would be listed in this table right here with the same kind of details and when it is to be triggered. Once that's available, it jumps up to here, accessible by who it is assigned to. Now that we've completed the task, let's have a quick look at the audit trail and how the task shows there.
Great. We've got a couple of questions
Yep.
on how it's visible in the audit trail, and does it time and date stamp when it's been completed?
Does it time and date stamp when being completed? So these are all handled by our audit trail. This is your best friend when it comes to finding out when things have happened and who did them. All right, so clicking on the audit trail, if I'm just going to search for the uniform task, so we can see just now, I have accessed the uniform task and reassigned it to, oh, sorry, Rick has accessed the uniform task and reassigned it to himself. And then you can see here as well, review uniform requirements task completed. So this is dated. Of course, today it won't show the date. I believe yesterday or up to 7 days ago. I believe it just shows that text and of course the time. But if I created this one this morning, so it's all going to say today. But if it was, say, I think it's over 7 or potentially 14 days, it will show the particular date on the audit trail for when the task has been completed and who it was completed by. Okay, I guess that's how an offer will display to back office users. It is based on visibility. One other thing, to view a kind of overall list of tasks. I know we looked at the dashboard, we saw actions for you. Now that was what is particularly assigned to Rick based on his roles and whether there's tasks assigned directly to him. If we go to the reports tab at the top and we click on the tasks option right here, that will actually show us all current tasks within the app. You can see Frank's been slack as well. Last year, wow. I can filter those tasks based on incomplete and complete, who they're assigned to, what workflow they're for, and I can also just search through them. I believe this search is based on the name of the task. It is paginated, so 10 per page, easy to filter or search through. If you do not have access to the task, so I've come in, I've gone, oh my goodness, Rick hasn't completed this this task for Richard Goodman's offer. I can drill into Richard Goodman, and like we saw earlier, navigate to tasks and reassign the task that is available. Outside of that, I think there's probably some more advanced, like we were looking at when we were configuring, some slightly more advanced items, which your CS consultant would be more than equipped to help you work through and configure. But I think that is all from me. Feel free to shoot some more questions my way.
Yep, we've got a couple, Daniel. So one of them was, can you see what tasks have been assigned to a user? So using that task report is a really great way to do that. Just filtering who hasn't completed a task or what tasks currently assigned to a particular person. It's a really great way to proactively manage tasks, and also to make sure that they're completed when they're supposed to.
Yep.
Another question we've got is, do users have to complete the task manually or have to manually mark it as complete? So I'm guessing that means actually logging into the app and yeah, physically hitting that complete button. The answer to that is yes. However, you know, with the email notification and using that dashboard, it is very easy for users to manage their task list. And probably the other thing around that is that if there's a task, say for uniform requirements, and it's going to a corporate department or something like that, they don't see, you can set it so that they don't see any other particulars of the offer, such as personal details like that, contracts themselves and personal details for the employee, so that it's fit for purpose and only people are viewing information that they should be viewing. So that's a really great feature in being able to hide sensitive information and just using tasks as a way to keep track of items that need to be done in the lead up to and post and onboard, offboard or crossboard. So I hope that helps answer that question.
So just on that one as well,
yeah.
So just like you said, the tasks are there to kind of keep track of when something has been completed. If there is kind of no need for a user to log in and, you know, tick that off, it'd be audited, it'd be tracked, that's where we can kind of use a notification.
Yes.
Include the information we need on the notification, shoot that off to the person that needs it, and they can do it in their own.
Yeah. So I think that's the key thing, right? With notifications, you set them up and you're sending that email to the person to either notify them of something, or if they actually need to do something, you've set that notification up, that's great, it's all automated and it does take something off your list to have to do and organise. However, you just don't have visibility that it has actually been done. And that's where tasks come in and you've just got a lot more visibility around it. Another great question we've got, and we'll probably just finish it there, but if you've got a few more questions, probably do have a bit more time. Paige has asked, can you add a task to complete prior to sending an offer? So her example there is ticking off that you've done a background check before the offer goes to the employee.
Before the offer goes to the employee, yes.
Yes.
Because we do have stages of review. Now, whether you are to use a task to include that, that's probably something to discuss with your consultant, best way to include that. But it is possible to have actions completed between HR sending an offer and the employee receiving the offer.
HR creating the offer?
Oh, well, you know, yeah. HR sending the offer for review.
Right, sending the offer for review,
Yeah, we have those kind of 3 levels of review we can include there, and also have tasks triggered and blocking levels of review if required. Yeah.
Probably just one thing to bear in mind with that though, if you are going to have a task that needs to be completed before the offer going out, it may cause delays to your onboarding process if it sort of gets tied up with things. However, we know background checks are pretty crucial and important, right? So yeah, totally up to you as to how you want to construct your workflow, but tasks in that sort of prepare and review stage will just add to that time in sending it out to an employee. But good question. Yep. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Any questions, please call us. We had some really great feedback from our last masterclass on notifications, and we've seen some really great notifications being set up in your environment. So we know that one had an impact. So we're really looking forward to seeing all the tasks and you guys using tasks. And please call us if you want to look at more of the advanced stuff, and we're here to take you through those. And just finally, on a different note, we have sent out a survey to you guys. So it's included in our, it was included in our latest monthly newsletter. And we've also popped it up on LinkedIn. The reason why we're doing this survey is to try and find out what pain points you're still experiencing with onboards. Is there anything that you're still finding to be, time consuming or painful during your onboarding process? That's going to help us build features to help you with that. So it's only a really short survey, should only take 2 minutes of your time, and that's just going to give us really great intel on what new and exciting features we can include in your environment. All right, we'll leave it at there. I hope you guys enjoyed our session on tasks. We'll announce our next masterclass soon. However, we think it's going to be around using the new contract library, which will be really cool and exciting. So look out for your invitation then. Otherwise, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.